First, we're about to start with our next panel. So, can we have everyone listening in? So,
Okay.
quick mic check.
Boop, 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 boop.
Sounds good. All right. So, the next panel is called On-Chain AI Agents. My name is Blingoh. I'm the co-founder of RadarBlock, a Web3 native growth marketing agency with a large portfolio in AI. We're working with Kite AI, Wana, Pin AI, CapEx, and many more. Super happy to be having this conversation. We have Alejandro from CLS, Jean from CrunchDAO, we have Alex from ZetaChain, and Henry from Kite AI. So, Alejandro, would you like to start with your introduction?
Yes, of course. Thank you very much. Thank you everyone for coming here today, this morning. So my name is Alejandro. I'm the head of partnerships of CLS Global, previously head of launchpad at Cityfy.found. And yeah, we mainly focus, on doing market making for projects, advisory, and go-to-market strategy with central exchanges.
Hello everyone, I'm going to do a second intro, so shorter. I'm Jean from CrunchDAO. We are crowdsourcing machine learning model for financial institutions.
Hi everyone, my name is Alex, ecosystem lead here at ZetaChain. We're the first layer 1 blockchain with native cross-chain smart contracts.
Hi guys, my name is Henry. I'm ecosystem and product lead at Kite AI. We're building an AI L1 that focuses on trust and verifiability and also on attribution for the new agentic economy. Good to be here.
Amazing. So, I think let's start with Henry. We just want to get a sense of what are on chain AI agents and what can they do today?
Yeah, I think this is an interesting question because I think there are two camps when it comes to what an on-chain agent is. I think the first camp, which what most people probably think, is an agent that does things on-chain, meaning trading or looking for signals and things to buy. And then I think the second camp will be a little bit more like an agent that's on-chain, meaning that the code of the agent actually lives on-chain, which I think so far I've not seen any true on-chain agents, right? That would be equivalent to like a smart contract with an LLM that lives on-chain. That's possible, but I think we can debate about like why we should need that later on. But assuming it's like the first case, right? Right now, agents do trading and find alpha, and then basically help you to execute DeFi actions on chain. And I think the other thing is, like marketing for generating content on social media like crypto Twitter in an automated way. I think those are the two most like broadly used terms.
I think answering this question, I want to take a step back. And when I joined crypto 8, 9 years ago, I had the same thesis where crypto was the only real use case for crypto is going to be payments and DeFi. And I still believe in that thesis to this day. I think a lot of AI in gaming, NFTs, DePIN, DeSci, it's all a bunch of, I'm sorry, bullshit. I think it's all fake. A lot of the crypto product UI UX, which I want to emphasize here, has not changed since when I first joined 8 or 9 years ago. The on-ramping and off-ramping experience of bringing assets on-chain and bringing it back to centralized exchanges is still the most tedious thing ever. And if you bring in DeFi with the DEX, yield aggregator, money market use cases, it even involves more complexity to it. So when I think of on-chain AI agents, I think of agents that are going to simplify the crypto product UI UX of DeFi. What that looks like to me is being able to generate a wallet, have that AI manage a wallet, and execute real on-chain actions that's not just redirecting the user somewhere else. So if an AI agent is able to do and perform an on-chain swap and also do some sort of yield aggregation product, that to me simplifies the current user product UI UX and the user experience of Web3 going into DeFi right now. I think 99% of all the on-chain AI agents are all BS. Really good tokenomics, really good market makers to pump it up. But other than that, as of right now, no real use case. I think DeFi is the only one that can be really seriously solved.
Well, I'll disagree with you. I'm a big fan of the pin first, and I really believe that there is much more application than that. I think it's so I think what we see with AI agent being only used in financial transaction is a bit short-sighted. There is much other application that are going to happen. That's why you see even in Web 2 world, so many businesses being funded and currently building agent ecosystem, agent to agent ecosystem, and where is that technology is going to go is just amazing because it's not only how we already mentioned and defined how agent can solve our problem, but then there is another dimension where agents solve problem of other agents, right? So I am a piece of code, I'm autonomous, I have, almost kind of an agency system, I can deploy money, I can do some stuff, but I'm gonna need to use other functionality and I'm gonna end up interacting with other AI agents that have the same kind of functionality and interface than I. Now, one of the most challenge, because there is challenges to reach that point, are having a common interface, right? That is unified for all AI agents to interact together. And this is something I'm like waiting to see because I think agent to agent like world is super interesting.
I think he's right. Like what is called these swarms. That is like where AI agents they can collaborate between each other, kind of like a team, to maybe have this marketing agency, this DeFi part, and even like office manager somehow. So I think it's truly a technology that came here and will stay 100% because it's part of the AI. I think that maybe the problem that is around AI agents lately is that always a token is involved when an agent is launching, and there should not be that many tokens per agent because we cannot see the utility over the token. But the utility over the agent is real, is a technology. You can see also like in gaming, I think like if you check Virtual's protocol, that has been the main launchpad launching AI agents. Their main focus was to create agents for gaming. So when you have avatars in MMORPGs that you can interact with them. And I think it will become something bigger in that vertical in gaming. So far, it happened, with agents like AXBT, that is more like trading. But I think it's the future. It came here to stay, and it's just like the token sometimes is not that much needed.
I think I agree with Alejandro that you don't need a token always, and there can only be enough of these that will stay in the market for the long term. Having said that, building upon what Alex and John said, just to get a sense of like now that we have these agents dealing with monetary financial instruments, there's like this big risk of getting hacked or drained, and we've seen cases of that with BankerBot and AXPT and few others. How do you look at safety and trust in a agentic execution environment?
I think safety is one of the main issues in this industry. You can perfectly see with the Bybit hack. Of course, Bybit is a huge exchange and they were using a multi-sign, and even that, they managed to hack billions from them. So it's clearly that agents that they are autonomous gonna have, like also like issues. But I think like it's just like a matter of improving our technology, getting over, like all the cheat codes that the hackers are finding. So I think it's something that's gonna be always here. Security is super important. That's why always getting support by security companies it's a must, and it's part of the innovation. Like fighting against the hackers. So I don't think like just because there were some breach on AXBT, we should be, afraid of getting autonomous agents still being alive and working with DeFi and tokens. I think hacking is I think super common in many protocols, in many projects, and it's our fight.
Well, it's still a piece of code, and I think the issue is the word that we're using, the semantic is wrong. When we use AI for these things, I hate it because it sounds like unfireable, right? But it's still a piece of code, it's still an algorithm, and that's why I like the autonomous agent kind of definition because it brings back to, okay, it's just some piece of code that is less static than a pure algorithmic reasoning. Before we had code that was like, if this, then that, if that, then this. If you were not in an if, then you were fucked, right? You couldn't code break. What is great with autonomous agent and having this LLM involved in this kind of behavior is that you are less static, and eventually the if is not defined, but the agent, the piece of code, have a bit more freedom to fast code the solution and end up somewhere instead of breaking, and that could eventually save some financial catastrophe sometime, create some. That's maybe, I mean, the future will tell. And of course, it's a piece of code, so it's fallible. It can be retro-engineered. It can be used. It can be prompted maliciously. And like any code, it comes with so many, single point of failure, decentralized or not. It's still a piece of code somewhere. So be mindful when you use these kind of things. And the industry is already. But use AI. I mean, autonomous agent is much better than AI agent. I think that's too much.
I think security in AI agents is still relatively new. I think teams have to take a dual approach to this. One where you have to be proactive and reactionary at the same time. This reminds me of a previous narrative in the couple cycles where it was cross-chain lending, and really all these top audit partners, they couldn't really figure it out because it's a new product they're introducing into the market. In general, I think when it comes to security, especially in Web3, we don't really know what's going to happen, especially for a vertical that's relatively very new now. I don't think a lot of people have the expertise as well, given how new the field is, even in Web 2. So we're just going to have to experiment and take a reactionary approach when it comes to seeing what other competitors or other products do, or if something bad happens, that you can adopt and future-proof yourself through a more proactive method. I don't think there's a right answer to security, but yeah, you have to take a reactionary and at the same time a proactive approach to it.
I'll kind of echo a little bit of what you mentioned and what Jean mentioned. And I think that the way I see agents as they are now and how it will be in the future is a little bit like a new on-chain primitive. And an on-chain primitive, I would say, are like smart contracts or oracles, right? And I think that if you look, like you mentioned, right, 8 years ago, or maybe like in 2017, right, when Ethereum first came to be and smart contracts became a thing, there weren't any security standards, right? And they were kind of like winging it along the way. In fact, like these practices were kind of being experimented, right, throughout the years. So things like reentrancy attack, floating point precision exploits and stuff like that, right, were learned in the hard way that hackers could actually, exploit smart contracts that way, right? And then they started to put all these best practices to then protect smart contracts, which are now, default standards already, right? But I think back then in 2017, right, you probably find it very difficult to believe that people will put in 2 or 3 billion US dollars in any smart contract, right? And today you're like, yeah, sure, what's the TVL? Oh, it's less than $1 billion? Not good enough, right? And I think the same thing will probably happen as well for agents eventually, because right now I don't think anybody is comfortable with putting like $1 billion, right, in any agent. But in time, when those best practices are found and also put in place, I think it's very possible, right, that we'll be very comfortable with putting a lot more money in the next few years, So I think it's just a matter of time, really, yeah.
And actually, what you say, Andrew, is I've seen it in the machine learning field. So I started building model more than 10 years ago in the insurance industry. I was doing classifiers. So classifiers is looking at time series and try to put people in a box and can you subscribe this guy or not? Basically, that's what the insurance had. And so 10 years ago, company were looking at machine learning model as something scary as well. They're like, am I going to do all my subscription based on this classifier? Like, is it transparent enough? Do we understand why he's putting this guy there or not? And so the industry of machine learning had to do this work of telling to the industry and making sure that the model is going to behave between two bands, which is like, okay, that's a maximum extreme behavior we're going to see. That's a less maximum. That's our error rate. And with time, you start to calibrate this error rate and you understand, now we still look at, for example, hallucinations of LLM. How do you calibrate the amount of hallucinations that's going to come in a model and how far you're going to end up from something that is what you were expecting is still something we are calibrating, so we don't know. But now, I mean, the traditional and more smaller model industry have been through this path, and now there is a model behind everything, right? Behind the last movie you watched, between which road you took with Google Maps, between what music you listen on Spotify before, who is your girlfriend even have been selected by an algorithm. So it's everywhere. And I think we're going to go there as well with AI. But just one risk that's happening as well is that by the tech, you have people that build the fundamentals, the building blocks, and then you have people that use these building blocks. And so now we have AI engineers that are using LLMs, blocks of things, and are building together, sometimes without understanding how the block is built. And we had the same thing in machine learning. People were using algorithms without knowing, what was the limitation, which led to a lot of overfitting. A lot of money have been lost by a lot of asset managers overfitting these models in the industry, and etc.
I mean, if we look at the early DeFi summer vibes, I think the AI situation right now is pretty cool, to be honest, because it was like every day waking up to an exploit, be it like a bridge exploit or doing something else. Like every day you learn like new types of exploit exist, and even to like a year back, to be honest, like I was in Khyber at that time when it got exploited for $50 million. So waking up at like 6 a.m. in the morning, coming to know that everything has been drained, and you don't even know what to do about it, right? But yes, I do feel that the AI agent economy right now is still in its budding phase. What we want to understand further is like we talked about composability, which is like using these blocks to build on top of it. How does the overall user experience become better with these AI agents in play now?
Thank you. This is it's my favorite question. Um, so I look at a lot of crypto product UI UX, and again, my sentiment is still the same. A lot of it hasn't changed, and the current swap and earn process. Just to go a bit on that, it's the only proven use case in DeFi that has real sticky users with real generating yield, with DEX and a yield aggregator use case. The on-ramping process to a DEX involves wallet creation. There's that own process for that. Offboarding off of a centralized exchange, going into a DEX, slippage customizations, and then you have all day slippage and different price outputs, liquidity pools, etc. You have to deposit liquidity, LP token, withdraw that. It's cumbersome. And on top of that, if you want to earn yield on top of it, you have to go to a yield aggregator, and that's a whole different product interface that the user has to understand as well, to understand where they're comfortably parking their money for a certain yield. That is still cumbersome. I really think that AI agents, if they're able to solve this entire process through a unified UI UX of being able to take your gas token or ETH from a centralized exchange, send it to an AI agent, give prompts to the AI agent. I want to swap it, I want to earn it, and have it in a presentable view to the user and perform the on-chain action for the user. I think that's going to be the very big use case for AI agents, and I think it's something that the market will not see or haven't seen in a very long time, and change the entire crypto product UI UX with AI agents. I think that's where AI agents come into play in a DeFi specific role.
The question is how it could be how agents could be more useful, right?
No, how it can improve the user experience in general.
Right. I think kind of similar to what you mentioned as well, right? Swaps and yield farming is a very strong like product market fit, right, in crypto. I think speaking from a personal experience, on top of that, right, I think mixing and matching different strategies. You know, let's say you do a yield farming strategy on some pool, let's say Meteora, which earns yield but also exposes you to, let's say, USD value risk or inventory risk. And then pairing that up with a perps hedging strategy on, let's say, a centralized exchange or even a DEX, right? Where you can then become delta neutral from a USD value standpoint and earn, let's say, funding rates, right? So that's you earn double yield on you earn yield on the yield farming pool, and then you earn funding rates as well. So added up, you might earn like 20%, right, per day, which is a lot for a delta neutral strategy. So I think so far what I've seen are two kinds of ways of doing it. One is if you do agents, it's more like it helps you execute one of it, or yield farm, or like say open the position on the perps protocol. I haven't personally seen any that mix or matches these different strategies. The ones that do, I think, are vaults. Let's say on Drift vaults that already pair up. It's kind of centralized that do it for you in a package, right? So I think maybe agents, in order to do this, then agents could be like an aggregator for vaults, right? But it's not intelligent in the sense that it actually is like a cook or recipe, a chef, right, that cooks up that recipe for you. But that's also paradoxical in my opinion, because if you're the nature of alpha, right, when you find an opportunity like this that earns you 20% per day, right, is that if an agent is able to find it and then distribute it to all the different users as well, it means it's not alpha anymore, right? And then the opportunity of 20% per day will just decay over time. So it's kind of like a paradoxical thing, right? But the thing that I'm wondering is if the market and the opportunities are big and long tail enough that your personal preference has a niche in to make money in this long tail market, such that your alpha doesn't decay. Let's say you have a preference for Trump, for yield farming on Trump coin, and then like let's say doing a hedge on frog coin, for example, whereas someone else does a little bit more large market caps, right? So it's still to be seen if the market can support a long tail like alpha for different preferences.
I think just to add some context to it, the industry is moving that fast already that if you lurk on AI on Hyperliquid, we're already seeing the ChatGPT operator versions of agents on Hyperliquid, which can actually do these multiple cursor strategies that it moves the cursor, clicks the action, moves to the next, but still first gen. Not like the future is here, but it's still first gen, right? But yeah, John.
So there is no such a thing as sustainable alpha. There is always be alpha decay. Why? Because markets are efficient, price are reflecting 100% of the available information and technology. So if you use a technology that is available, this is already absorbed in the price. If you use data that is available, this is already absorbed in the price. Forget about it. The only way is to use closed source, proprietary data, and like do that internally. So I don't believe in sustainable alpha, but having these technologies into the hand of more people is maybe an opportunity to, create these factories of always coming up with new ideas. And of course, agents for this are amazing because you can crawl such an amount of information, come with new idea much faster than what you will with a team of analysts. And by the way, all the hedge funds on the planet are already having these kind of tools and they are using it. So it's already absorbing the price as well. There is continuous race. But you mentioned having a better UX for user. That's super important. Just to the other UX improvement thanks to AI agent is what I mentioned before, is a uniformization of using the other services, right? Before you needed a developer to come to read the API of the other product or the other protocol, figure it out, code the solution, and then connect the two services. AI agent can do these connections eventually if the documentation is well written. If you have good example of the code, then you can have an LLM read that documentation and code the connectors automatically, so access that service without having a human involved in the loop. That's a tremendous improvement of UX, and it will make all the industry virtually collaborating better, having this bridge between protocol happening without, even like behind the scene, really in the developer UX, let's say, not in the user UX. The user UX is just, okay, I'm having a higher yield. That's all you care are the user eventually, or I want to do as little click as possible between the beginning of the process and the end of the process. So I think that's the two KPI, right? How performant is the product and how boring it is to use if the product can connect to an infinite amount of other services, and it makes the number of clicks like much lower.
I will keep it simple and straight to the point. I think agents will bring simplification, user acquisition, and mass adoption.
I think we were talking about sustainable alpha. So I need to say this that sustainable alpha only exists in private Telegram groups. So I think other than that. But yeah, okay, final question. So we're seeing these lot of automations in AI landscape. So how can we understand, like we're seeing airdrop farmers, NFT flippers, reply guys, all being done by agents. So are we losing sense of like real users moving ahead, or how do we keep them engaged in the long term?
I think it's a good way to start, like if you want to follow alphas and you are not in a cabal, following agents like XBT or other ones, I think like could be, like a good start for new people in crypto. So yeah, I think they bring, positive sentiment to the market, they bring insights, and that's already a utility.
Simply put, I think incentives are going to dry up. None of them are for the long term. A lot of people are airdrop farmers, and I don't blame them. There's 20% APY on one chain, go for it. Um, I think the real answer to users or real users is just going to happen during a bear market. There's no hard answer, there's no right answer during this market, but once we're in a bear market and everyone's suffering, that's when things will start to crumble down. A lot of the facades will start to come down. A lot of the real source of yield will start to be unraveled, and you can only find out those things in a bear market.
I think the question of whether or not automation or agents will replace a lot of on-chain activities like trading and yield farming and stuff like that is interesting, because I think in general the trend will be the case such that I think the majority of the volume, even on TradFi, equities trading, right, is, John would know this, is probably more so algorithmic trading than actual human traders. And I think the case also is probably true right now with crypto and will become even more and more so. But does it mean that everybody would just be, an owner of agents and bots that then trade on, do stuff on chain on their behalf? I don't think so, actually, because there are two reasons I think that people participate on chain. One, sure, is to make money, but I think probably a stronger reason is because they just like to have fun, and I think that dopamine surge, of like either making a lot of money and even losing a lot of money and bragging about losing a lot of money, right? It's just part of like the culture. I think it's almost like saying, okay, if you play a game and if you have an agent that helps you play the game to earn the points and the trophies and the badges, right, in the game, then would everybody just use agents to play games? I don't think so, right? Because people play games because they like the game, right? And I think crypto and Web3, right, is a big game in itself, and people enjoy it, right? Enjoy participating in it. So I think that will everybody just be using agents? I don't think so, and that will just be a flavor of the game that they play, right? I like to do algorithmic trading on chain. This is the game I'm playing. I like to speculate and trade meme coins on chain or yield farm, right? So I think it's just like a case that you pick a flavor of your game, and it will always be relevant where people will always be using stuff on chain.
Yeah, for me, it's just a piece of code. So you just use that piece of code if you like to use it. If the technology is more performant, some people will still code everything themselves. Some people will use an AI agent. Depends on what you try to build. If you want to go very fast, you can already forget about using any kind of LLM or any kind of intelligence, because there is a compromise between speed and the amount of intelligence you can use. And Alejandro, you know that pretty well. So if you need to go fast, forget about it. If you need to go sweet and you don't want to spend too much time on that, then AI agents are perfect. So I think it's just adding another use case, and it will involve a lot of people that could not onboard before. Whether it is in investment, whether it is in quant trading, whether it is in just yield farming, well, why not? We just make things easier, and that's what we want to have to onboard the next 100 million user. It's about we want them to not even know that they are using decentralized technologies anymore, right? And make it just this use case, this primitive that doesn't exist in TradFi, but that only exists in Web3. So new use case, more dopamine, differentiated value for the users. And so I think it's net flow really, really positive.
Amazing. So I think we learned a lot about on-chain AI agents today. Thank you to our amazing panelists for educating us and everyone for listening. Take care, guys.
Thank you.